Kalle Sundström, board chair of the Finnish-Swedish Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Box by Alihankinta podcast.
Thank you.
Straight to the topics we are discussing today. One interesting area that is kind of touching basically everyone in the business and in industries and subcontracting in industries is the sustainability, and on the other hand, competitiveness. So what are your kind of thoughts in a bigger picture? What are the main barriers for companies, especially in Nordic areas, when it comes to kind of competitiveness and getting business better? So what are the main barriers for businesses today?
So I think at the moment we have a tariff issue in the US. And that, with as I understand, the 15% versus the US, it's higher in the UK, 10%. However, we are more of a manufacturing, and it's probably one of the lowest, but it's probably going to hit demand a bit. If you refer the question to sustainability, I believe that the Nordics have a big competitive advantage in this area. And first of all, it's our energy balance.
Yep.
I think it's 99.9% in Sweden. It's 98% in Finland, where the energy production is basically fossil free. You have a little bit of gas and turf burning in Finland, which we don't have in Sweden. We have basically none of that. So I think we have an energy situation which is unique if you compare even to Denmark or to Germany or to most of the European countries. I think that we are also countries that do a lot of B2B, business to business, and our main industries are basically business to business and to a lesser extent business to consumer. I think it's all about the competitiveness. It's about energy efficiency or material efficiency. We are also having an advantage, which is that we have a legislation system and probably one of the best democracies in the world, or in the Nordics, which on the social agenda is good. And we have a good governance. I think we have all the puzzles in the jigsaw, all the pieces in the jigsaw. I think one of the challenges for medium-sized companies is actually to start to drive this from an innovation point. Because if you look to many of our exports, so the main export nation for Finland is basically Sweden, and the second one is Germany, and then it's a number of countries. Some of those industries in the B2B are not focusing enough on the sustainability, and you're probably seeing that the legislation in EU is getting a bit softer. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that the way forward for us is to go down the road of increased innovation. I'm not so worried about the big companies. If you take the Kone or the Wärtsilä of Finland and Atlas Copco and Scania and the Volvo in Sweden. But the smaller companies, they need to be a little bit more focused on innovation. And I think that's the main hinder of becoming even more sustainable.
So, yeah. So the kind of good news is that we have something very unique here in the Nordics, worldwide, yes, globally, like the kind of green energy basis in our energy production, yeah. And then again, we are trusted because of the legislation and kind of good governance tradition for decades. So that's kind of a. That might be something that we don't value ourselves enough. It has been kind of.
No, I think both countries are in a way a little bit shy when it comes to talk of what we are good at.
Yeah.
But I do believe that we need to focus even more on innovation.
Yeah.
And that is everything from driving material efficiency, energy efficiency. It's about digitalization. It's about artificial intelligence. So I think we need to drive that even more, because if you combine that with sustainability in all the matters, I think we have a good position, but we need to be a little bit more brave.
Yeah, I agree. And when it comes back to innovation, the interesting thing is that we have the talent. We have very good education system, so we are producing good talent. But the lack maybe there is that on investment point of view, there are big countries, China of course, and US, other big countries, and they have massive investment resources, so to speak. Yeah. But the education.
But if you, education we have a good talent, we have smart people, and if you look at both Finland and Sweden, Sweden is the country in the world who has most unicorns per capita, and the problem with those companies, and it's a bit the same in Finland, they are not focusing on the Swedish or the Finnish market. They are focusing on the US market.
Yeah.
And that's a problem we have, that a lot of the innovations that we do don't stay in the Nordics. They go to the US because it's a bigger market, and we have a different compensation systems that applies to some people. But I do believe that we have, I think we have all the ingredients, but we also need to have a system that supports people, making sure that they develop European companies and not always US companies.
Yeah. Maybe we need to cook some sort of a new soup from these ingredients, a kind of a business soup, so to speak, and kind of go back to the kitchen and organize our ingredients a bit differently. Maybe add a little bit more spices, on braveness spices, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. Regulation, that's of course one of the topics that is always on the table. Is there too much regulation, or is it in the wrong place? What's your view on regulation discussion?
So I am quite critical of the legislation in Brussels. Mm. So they used to call Brussels Silicon Valley of regulations. And if you look on the recent EU legislation on artificial intelligence, which hasn't really started, but they've already regulated it. Mm-hmm. If you have the time, read through it. It basically makes it impossible to do this in Europe. So many companies are stopping the artificial intelligence development in Europe, and they are moving to the US.
Yeah.
And many of the smart people who works with it are going to the US. You have like Silo IA, mm-hmm. bought by the US.
Yeah.
I can name 30% of the people leading the AI development in the US are actually Europeans who has left Europe.
Yeah.
And if you regulate things before they actually exist, it's very hard. Because if you read a proposed legislation, it's actually impossible to make artificial intelligence, because science is never evil. People are evil.
Yeah.
In the US, they have a different system. They start without regulations, and then they regulate when something happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite opposite of our thinking. So,
yes.
And maybe that's sometimes it feels from European perspective that the legislation part is, there is some sort of even control freakness, if you want. I mean, it's really badly said, but sometimes it feels so that the regulation itself becomes some sort of a business or kind of a power for the institution that look what we can do.
Yeah. And it's a little bit the same with sustainability. Mm. We have implemented a CSRD, was implemented, and then there was a huge protest in France and Germany. So the legislation softened it down a little bit, but there were only 2 countries in the whole of Europe who actually implemented CSRD for 2024. And that was Denmark and Finland.
Yeah, of course.
No, and you know, how much money did these companies spend to be able to make this report, which is incredibly big and complicated? It's an enormous amount. And my knowledge or my experience from working in business my whole life is you never control yourself to success. I don't say then that you shouldn't have controls and check and balances. That you must have. But you can't put up legislation trying to control yourself to success.
Yeah.
Because what's happening in reality is France and Germany was so badly prepared that they can't do it.
Yeah.
So then they decided, we stop it for a while, and now it's, you know, the double materiality is watered down, and it's going to be watered down, less companies included. So I agree with you. We have created a bureaucratic animal in Brussels.
Yeah. And somehow this takes us, if we take a kind of a step back, and you were discussing about our innovation capabilities. So this also means that we are actually creating these barriers by ourselves, and the conclusion or what happens because of that, we are losing the innovations and IPRs to US and other markets because of the control, because of so it's a problem we are creating by ourselves.
Yeah, and that is also highlighted in a way in the Draghi report, which actually talks about that we need to improve the productivity of European industries.
Yeah.
But we are trying to control it and make it even tougher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm the first one to say that sustainability is a competitive advantage, rightfully managed. But wrongfully managed, it's a hinder to be competitive.
Yeah.
Now US has thrown it out of the legislation, and you know, but it's mainly around the S in ESG, because green energy is still very, very efficient in the US because it's the lowest cost of energy right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thinking about kind of an other aspect in our conversation, the bigger picture, or even the bigger picture behind the bigger picture. I mean, if you think about it as a layers, there is a big picture, and maybe there is one bigger picture behind the big picture. What are the kind of weak signals or not so weak signals you are following in the industries areas at the moment in the global scale?
So first one I'm following is obviously geopolitical situation. We have Russia trying to invade Ukraine, which is terrible. I think this is probably a lot closer to the Nordic countries, and especially Finland, which has the longest European border with Russia.
Yeah.
And that is like a bully going in. So that's something that I'm worried about. We have the increased tension between US and China because, you know, Russia's economy, even though they have nuclear weapons, is the size of Holland.
Yeah.
Or it's about the same size as the Nordic countries. So it's not a huge country.
Yeah.
But so I think from a US perspective, the main antagonist right now is China. And China is trying to push their situation into a stronger situation versus the US, because they are still not as big as US are, and US feel that China is going after. So that is something that I'm looking quite a lot of. The other thing is that I think the globalization as we saw it like 5 years ago doesn't exist any longer. I think it's probably more of a globalization, which means that you probably have global products, but you will have a lot more localization of production and sales, which means that the labor arbitration that we have used a lot with China historically is probably not going to continue, which means that we're going to drive automation in our production to a greater extent.
Yeah.
And I think now automation is probably in the heavy industry, we have had automation for the last 100 years. Less and less workers and more production. But now it is also coming into the office.
Yeah.
Where a lot of things, and that I think is something we need to work with, because I think that's scaring people. But there are also other sectors in the society where we need more people. We need more nurses, or we need more in the care business. We need more people in the armed forces. We need more policemen. We need more in the legal system. So we need to think a bit about how we can redeploy people going out of traditional low-skilled office work into more important work in the public sector, like teachers and working with schools and so forth. So I think that's another thing I'm looking on the big picture, and that is happening everywhere. So there is, in the whole Western world, there is a lack of hospital employees everywhere. You have it in Finland, Sweden, Norway, US, the whole. And we need to get more people in there to be able to take care of an aging population that we are having in the whole Western world.
Yeah, this kind of scenarios, or it's not actually a scenario, it's happening. It's happening. It has a big impact on the societies, as we have been kind of used to understand how society works and operates. And at the same time, from industry point of view, as you mentioned, the localization, the manufacturing 4.0, or what they call it nowadays, we takes it back to the local production, but highly automated, using AI, different kind of AI systems, agents. It will also change the logics and the kind of traditional thinking of industries.
Absolutely. That means also that the people that work in that industry is going to be needs to be a lot more skilled.
Yeah.
So I remember, it's probably 8 years ago, I went to Japan to look at a sawmill that was 100% automated, including packaging. And why did they have to do that in Japan? Lack of labor.
Yep.
And we will do the same to be able to compete with because it will be demands for local manufacturing going forward, and the cost in Europe is so high, so you need to automate. So a robot today, fairly advanced one, is probably has a cost around 15 to 20 euros per hour, which is lower than you pay a worker in all included in either Finland or Sweden. And they don't need rest. They have no injuries.
Yeah.
But to be able to maintain them, you need high-skilled labor. So it's a shift in the manufacturing. Low-skilled labor will be not as much needed as they have been historically.
Yeah. All this put together and combined means that there is a massive shift going on in Nordic societies and European societies, of course, globally, but especially here because we have a so long tradition in certain kind of order and systems. As we spoke before, that the learning curve we need to go through must be kind of fast and really smart, so we don't kind of harm what's valuable, and at the same time learn new ideas and basically recreate our operations. It's really about cooking a new soup with our ingredients.
Again, you need to get back to the kitchen.
Yeah.
And you need to train a lot of chefs how to do this. So you need to reskill people, and you need to make sure that society understands that this is the way forward.
Yeah. If we take a look and kind of narrow the perspective a little bit to Sweden and Finland, and from your point of view, the cooperation between these two countries and businesses in Finland, in Sweden. We have a long tradition, of course, Finland-Sweden cooperation. What are the biggest possibilities at the moment you see in the future for Finnish companies, Swedish companies, and in subcontractor industry point of view?
So I believe there are no countries in the world more similar than Sweden and Finland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when it comes to legal system, value systems, history, and everything. And the easiest for a Finnish or a Swedish company to expand business is either in Finland or in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the easiest.
That's right.
And that's usually how you start your export business for small and medium-sized businesses. The only big difference is that in Finland you have a majority language which the Swedes don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say during my years, I worked most of my life in different forms between Sweden and Finland, is that the English is becoming a lot better in both countries.
Yeah.
And that's fundamental, because you cannot ask the Finns to speak Swedish, or you cannot ask the Swedes to speak Finnish.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't work. But English. So I think it's actually, and you see now last year, from being number 2 in export from Finland, Sweden became the biggest export nation, surpassing Germany, who has been in the lead for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not strange, because given the geopolitical situation, we need each other even more.
Yeah. One thing I noticed from some interview I read where you've been interviewed is that you kind of shot down a couple of really classic stereotypical thoughts we have about each other. You mentioned that the shyness of Finns is not true. And on the other hand, the tension to diskutera in Swedish tradition, that's not true. So there are certain kind of stereotypical items that are not actually true, and we are.
That's my experience.
Yeah.
So we are quite the same.
Yeah.
And historically, the problem has been the language for the majority of. But that's been the only thing, and that's going away now with English. So,
yeah. So tick in the box. It's handled, and we can discuss in English.
And we have basically a similar industrial structure.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that Finland is a young country. It has been through civil war and the Second World War, which meant that you started on a poorer balance sheet compared to Sweden, which didn't have any war since 1809.
Yeah.
But so that is the difference, that we have a lot more small and medium-sized companies in Sweden, which is the backbone of Swedish industry. Even though you think it's the big companies, the backbone is the small and medium-sized, who are subcontractors to the big companies.
Yeah, like the Mittelstand, so to speak.
Yeah, Mittelstand. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think for any Swede, the easiest country to work with is Finland, and it's probably the same for any Finn.
So this is something now we could almost like give a kind of statement, official statement of Box podcast, is that for the Swedes we say, go to the east, young man, but only to Finland. Not that way.
Only to Finland.
Only to Finland. And for the Finns, our statement could be, go to the west, young man, and first to Sweden. Would that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there something, some sort of, and this is more like a kind of cultural aspect. You mentioned now a couple of times that we are very similar in cultural terms, but and of course we have a same sort of a tradition and system in our societies. But is there some sort of a secret ingredient you wouldn't say on the podcast except now?
No.
No.
No, and I worked and partly lived in Finland since 2012 to basically beginning of 2020, and I no.
Yeah.
No.
What's really fascinating about this conversation that there is so much kind of positive possibilities you tend to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also, the Swedish big companies needs the skill set of subcontractors from Finland.
Yeah. So
and I think it's vice versa.
Yeah. And this is the kind of important message to all our listeners is that there is the need on both sides and go for it.
And if you look, transportation cost is a big cost in many businesses. And the shortest distance is actually between Sweden and Finland than most of the markets because we have the industry.
Yeah.
So, and then for the geopolitical situation, we are now, which probably nobody thought 5 years ago, we are both members of NATO.
Yeah.
And we have a huge neighbor next door who is not a very friendly one. So the stronger we are economically, the better possibility we have to defend ourselves.
Yeah, and this is also a really important message. And of course, it has a link to different kind of industries in this new world order, where we have a lot of traditional good companies operating on the defense and security areas also. Yeah. Kalle, this has been so fascinating and a lot of fun, and I think it's time to thank you for your visit to our podcast and thank you for your time. What is your plan? What is your next visit? When is your next visit to Finland?
It's end of August. I'm also a board member of Ström in Finland.
Yeah. Great. So welcome to Finland and see you in Sweden.
Yes. Take care. Have a nice end of the summer.
Yeah, you too.